It's not just Earthion that hypes us among the independent projects on the Sega Genesis. There's also a certain ZPF, developed by a talented team, including Mikael Tillander, the developer behind the charming Tanzer, Grizzer Rosierg pixel artist and game designer, and Jamie Vance, composer. While they are currently fine-tuning their baby, awaiting a potential Kickstarter campaign, they recently shared a quite generous demo, featuring no less than 3 stages and 3 different ships. The first ZPF trailer had been a shock in terms of graphics, dynamics, and music. With its contrasting and even garish artistic direction, generous parallax scrolling, and detailed backgrounds, this production seems straight out of an Amiga on steroids, sprinkled with a dash of Lord of Thunder, Jana, and Thunder Force 4. Needless to say, like many others, I was eager to get my hands on it. The options are quite comprehensive for a demo. You can configure the difficulty through the number of lives, bombs, and medals, button configurations, and a sound test. For this Let's Play, I decided not to modify the default settings and play the levels in their selection order. Each of the 3 levels, with distinct atmospheres, appears to correspond to a dedicated ship: the Knight in the first, the Gladius in the second, and the Gold in the third. First observation: there's no deception when it comes to the graphics. It's bursting with color, the screen is often saturated with enemies, and the parallax scrolling is eye-catching. The artistic direction, which I would place somewhere between steampunk and vaporwave, can be divisive. Personally, I love it, but I admit it sometimes verges on the intentionally bad taste. The parallax effects are there, but their execution can sometimes appear a bit crude. Where its competitor Earthion opts for sobriety and finesse, ZPF goes for the bold and flashy approach. And I'm not complaining. Just look at how it flashes when you shoot at the bosses. That's what we want. Second observation: ZPF's trailers didn't lie about its dynamism either. It was one of its other promises, throwing you into the thick of it with big, fat NPCs, dozens of enemies at a rapid and stable frame rate, and gargantuan bosses, all with a high level of detail. This is convincing as well, although a problem quickly emerges: the lack of action clarity. It's the downside of the choices made earlier, but also due to projectiles that aren't always easily distinguishable. Amid power-ups, medals, and enemy shots, it's easy to get lost. My last major point concerns the soundtrack, which seemed quite intense in the trailers. It may have been my only disappointment in this demo. Not that it's bad, the music in Stage 2 is particularly good, but it doesn't match the adrenaline rush of, say, the Lords of Thunder soundtrack. It's quite subdued and ultimately not in line with the punk aesthetic of the game. Now, let's talk about the gameplay system. As I mentioned, there are 3 playable ships, each offering 3 different weapons but structured in the same way, with a basic shot that can be powered up once, a melee attack, and a smart bomb. All 3 deliver their own brand of firepower. Knight launches concentric daggers, Gladius has a spread shot, and Gold fires a sort of laser. It's very classic but effective. However, I found the melee attack to be less effective, unlike Lords of Thunder, which makes its use enjoyable because it's risky but rewarding. Here, it seems sterile. On the other hand, the smart bombs pack a punch, maybe even too much. The game isn't very difficult, and it resembles Red's title from that perspective. To my knowledge, though I might have missed something, the shop, reminiscent of Lords of Thunder again, is not accessible. But it promises some nice upgrades for the future. So, don't judge the current power of the shots, it's admittedly modest. Another point that might spark debate is the somewhat flat level design. It's far from, for example, Irina, one of its rival projects in development, which tries to introduce variety in level construction. However, ZPF fully embraces its brainless and manic shooter orientation at times. This tendency will likely be accentuated in higher difficulty modes. I mentioned ZPF's acknowledged inspirations, and some are immediately recognizable, like this passage reminiscent of Thunder Force 4. But one point should not be up for debate at the moment. Despite these nods and heavy homages, ZPF has managed to find its own identity through fast-paced shooting, admittedly a bit over the top but fun. It complements the future Earthion, which is imbued with finesse and subtlety.